What's up, people? My name is James Blissett, professional gambler and founder of Lucrative MMA, which is my handicapping service where I help people make money from betting on MMA. And today we're going to be speaking about Aljamain Sterling versus Henry Cejudo, which is the upcoming main event for the UFC 288 pay-per-view that goes down this weekend. This is a great fight. I can't wait to talk about this fight. I've actually done a lot of research for this fight, more research than I do for most fights, just because I wanted to see some specific things, and it took me a lot of fights to watch to find those things, and some things I couldn't even find. And we'll get into that today. I'm going to try and hopefully help you make some money from this fight. As always, I got all of my official picks and predictions on lucrativemmabetting.com. This is my handicapping service. We have been smashing it this year. We've over 60 units profit already in 2023. And the people who have joined are making hella money. If you are not joined, I don't know what you're doing, because we're making tons of money at Lucrative MMA. We have been making it for 5 years, and we're continuing to make it almost every single week. We're coming off a plus 10 unit weekend last week. And as I say, we're only 4 months through the way of the whole year, and we're already 60 units in profit. If we continue this year like we have been doing for the first 4 months, we're going to have a 180 unit year. So we'll see how it goes. There's upswings and downswings in sports betting, but we're making tons and tons of money. So if you haven't joined, I don't know what the hell you're doing. Today, though, I'm going to give you some free content as I do every single week. This is the main event breakdown, and I do this thing every single week on my YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't liked, then you're missing out on a lot of main event breakdown videos. And I may even do a full card breakdown this week. I haven't fully decided, but you know, oftentimes I'm a lot more motivated for these pay-per-views to do full card breakdowns and actually put in the work to do the content. So I think I may do that this week. If you want a full card breakdown of every single fight on the card for this UFC 288 pay-per-view, then let me know. Hit me up in the comments. Tell me that you want a full card breakdown. If I get enough comments, I will do one. So let's get straight into it, man. We'll speak about Henry Cejudo, because this guy is... This is what the fight's based around, right? It's mainly based around Henry Cejudo. You know, we've seen Aljamain Sterling defend his title, fight, you know, multiple title fights now. But the big question this weekend, or the big attraction this weekend is Henry Cejudo, because it's Henry Cejudo's return fight. Henry Cejudo hasn't fought since he fought Dominic Cruz. He got a knockout against Dominic Cruz. It was a little bit controversial. You know, it is what it is. That was back in 2020. So you're talking 3 years, you know. Henry Cejudo has been out of the ring 3 years, or out of the octagon for 3 years. And the big question mark is, how is he going to look on his return? You know, not only is he coming back 3 years later from his last fight, which is a long time. The fight game, a lot happens in 3 years, you know. The fight game progresses a lot in 3 years. But not only is he coming back 3 years later, but he's also 36 years old when he comes back. And not only is he 36 years old and returning from a 3-year layoff, but he's doing it in the bantamweight division. And as we know, the bantamweight division is one of the lightest weight classes in the UFC. It's the second most light weight class in men's MMA. Only flyweight is lighter. And oftentimes when you get fighters who get older, they can't compete at the lighter weight classes as much as they can compete at the higher weight classes. And the reason for that is mainly because the physical attributes that you need to win at lighter weight classes start to dwindle as you get older, much more aggressively than the physical attributes that start to dwindle that you need to use to win at the higher weight classes. So, you know, when you're up at the higher weight classes, you're talking about heavyweight, light heavyweight, you don't need agility and speed for most fighters as much as you do power, right? I mean, if you have no power at a high weight class, then you're going to struggle a lot more than people who have power, right? Just in general. And most people have power at that weight class. And what happens as you start to get older, your power doesn't go until you're quite old. So a lot of the higher weight class fighters, they can fight until they're older. But what does start to go is your reaction time and your speed, your agility, and these type of things you really need to perform well at lighter weight classes. So you need your agility, you need your speed, you need your reaction time. You know, you have to have that on point. And if it's not on point, then you're going to struggle with these lighter weight classes. So it's going to be interesting to see Henry Cejudo return, not only because he's a good fighter and I can't wait to see him return, but also because he's returning at an age where most people do not fight very well in this weight class, the bantamweight division, at 36 years old. It just doesn't really happen. Now, there are, differences, and, there are some fighters that are outliers, and to be honest, Henry Cejudo in his life has been an outlier. He won the Olympics when he wasn't favourite to do so. He beat Demetrius Johnson when he wasn't favourite to do so. He even beat TJ Dillashaw when he wasn't favourite to do so. I think he wasn't favourite against Marlon Moraes even. So the guy keeps on overcoming boundaries and obstacles in his whole life. So I wouldn't be surprised if he comes here, 3-year layoff. No one's ever really come from a 3-year layoff and dominated a lighter weight title fight. But, I wouldn't be super surprised if he does it. But it's going to be hard, right? It's going to be tough. And I think most of this fight is based around those question marks. I don't think the fight is based around skill sets too much. But we will get into the skill sets, right? And I'll speak about them in just a moment. But let's move over to Aljamain Sterling, right? Aljamain Sterling is Henry Cejudo's opponent. He's the current bantamweight champion. And he has been fighting in the bantamweight division for his entire career, whereas Henry Cejudo wasn't. He was a flyweight champion, then he moved up to bantamweight. So Aljamain Sterling is going to be the guy who's been fighting the bigger bodies for most of his career. He's a very tall, long, rangy guy, especially for a bantamweight. He's very got long limbs, good reach advantage, good reach in general. And this guy's been in and out of the octagon consistently over the last few years. He's had those fights against Peter Yan, where he won both of them. Say what you want. Oftentimes, people say he lost both of them. It goes down as a W on his record for both fights. And then, TJ Dillashaw, he got that finish. TJ Dillashaw's shoulder popped out, but he still won that fight. And then even before that, he was on a very good run. I remember he was beating Cody Stamann. Fighters like that, Cody Stamann. He beat a few other guys as well. Who did he beat before he fought Peter Yan? I've got his record up here. Let me have a look. Oh, yeah, Corey Sandhagen fight. So that's when he submitted him in round 1. That was a very good fight. Corey Sandhagen's surging in the division. So Aljo's a good fighter, man. He's mainly a jiu-jitsu guy. Like, he likes to get you down and do his best work from top position. But the guy can do it all, man. The guy's got good striking, effective striking. It's not great, but it's effective. We see someone like Pedro Munoz. You could say that he's a better striker than Aljamain Sterling, technique for technique. But Aljamain Sterling pieced him up on the feet for 3 rounds. Dominated him, really. I mean, landed so many strikes on Pedro Munoz. And that was, part of his run just before the Corey Sandhagen fight, before he fought for the belt against Peter Yan. So the guy might not be the best technical striker, but he's very effective in MMA because his striking not only lends itself to being close quarters, just pumping out loads of volume, and then if you're pumping out loads of volume, you can easily close range. This is what Merab Dvalishvili does really well. And actually, they're very, very good friends, very tight, close friends and training partners. So it's no surprise to see them implement a similar style in MMA in terms of they both like to pump out tons of volume. And because they're pumping out so much volume, it's very easy for them to close distance because they're the ones controlling the range. If you're controlling the range, you can minimize that range so you close distance, right? So Aljamain Sterling, he's hitting his fighters with jabs, kicks, front kicks, so much volume that they're kind of just overwhelmed with information, this information being the striking volume, that they're not ready for him to grab a single leg or dive to the legs, which he does often, right? So I think Aljamain's striking isn't the best technique for technique, but for MMA and specifically for his style, it's very, very good. And it's going to be interesting to see how both styles match up here because, Henry Cejudo is a lot different. Henry Cejudo is a wrestler, right? So he won the Olympics, he won the gold medal, I believe it was, in wrestling in the Olympics. And so coming into MMA, his base style was wrestling. But we saw his striking evolve drastically throughout his career. Now, this is something that's really, really important. I just want to highlight this. Not only is it important, but it's just such an amazing thing that I saw happen throughout Henry Cejudo's career that I think is important to mention, right? Henry Cejudo was a decent striker coming in. He's just a great fighter. He's a winner in general, right? He's obviously a very fast learner. And he was always a good striker, even when he was a wrestler. Like early MMA days, he's still a good striker, when he's fighting the likes of Joseph Benavidez even. It wasn't too early, but he's a good striker. He's not the worst striker, right? Got good leg kicks, decent hands. But what happened during Henry Cejudo's career was amazing. So he fought Joseph Benavidez, right? And I think it was a split decision loss. split decision? I just want to fact check myself there. Yeah, it was a split decision loss. By the way, the fight could have gone his way, but it was a split decision loss, right? And then he took a year off. I think he was meant to fight Sergio Pettis, but the fight was cancelled. So his next fight after Joseph Benavidez was against Wilson Hayes. And that was a year after the Joseph fight, right? A year after the Benavidez fight. And something changed drastically in between the Joseph Benavidez fight and the Wilson Hayes fight. Because his striking improved tenfold. In 1 year, his striking improved more than I've ever seen anybody's ever improved in MMA. Not only did his striking improve so much, but his whole style of striking completely changed. So Henry Cejudo was a typical wrestling striker. Not very good, decent hooks. And he did have some better footwork than most wrestlers. He had some good kicks and stuff like that. But his striking wasn't nothing special. In the Wilson Hayes fight, he adopted a completely different stance than he had ever adopted before. He adopted a karate stance. Now he's fighting like a karate fighter. It was very strange to see Henry Cejudo do that. It served him very well, because in that Wilson Hayes fight, he was beating him up badly on the feet. He was catching him, and he ended up knocking him down and finishing him via punches, which was the first finish of Henry Cejudo's UFC career, right? So he fought Benavidez, completely changed his striking style, and then in the very next fight with the new fighting style, the new striking style, he got a knockout on the feet. So it just showed you that it definitely worked, right? And then he employed that style every single fight after. He had 6 fights after that, and he used that same karate stance in every single fight, and he won every single fight. He fought Sergio Pettis, fought well there, got a couple of takedowns. And the next fight, he fought Demetrius Johnson. And this was for the title, and this was against the guy who had already knocked him out in round 1, right? Henry Cejudo came through adversity in that fight, not only because he had already been beat by this guy, that's adversity as it is, having a rematch against someone who already beat you, but also because he injured his leg, twisted his ankle, injured his peroneal nerve. Something happened to his leg in the first round. He was able to recover from that, and he ended up winning the fight, right? Split decision, but definitely I thought he won it. I mean, argument for Demetrius, but I definitely thought he could have won it. It's a very close fight. Demetrius, one of the best fighters in the world, so that was amazing to see Henry Cejudo go strike for strike with Demetrius Johnson. Not only because Demetrius Johnson was one of the best fighters to ever live, but also because that same fighter, Demetrius Johnson, knocked him out on the feet in their first fight. He didn't come close to knocking him out on the feet in the second fight. In fact, Henry Cejudo was the one hurting Demetrius more than Demetrius was hurting him. So that change of style to adopt a karate stance and bounce in and out with the lead hand out there just measuring range was amazing. It was amazing to see, and it worked against TJ Dillashaw. He got a knockout within 30 seconds. I mean, who does that to TJ Dillashaw? No one, And then obviously against Marlon Moraes, he was getting beat up a little bit, but he was able to came through. And then Dominic Cruz again, like that striking style was so good, because he was able just to unload the kicks on Dominic Cruz more than he would have been able to do if he wasn't, if he didn't have the karate stance, if he didn't have such a wide stance. He was just peppering leg kicks, and then he actually landed a great knee. I mean, his striking, I keep going on about it because it was so amazing to see. His striking change has been phenomenal. And so he went on a great run, won 6 fights, 7 fights in a row, whatever it was, and captured not only the flyweight title off Demetrius Johnson, but also the bantamweight title, right? So he was champ, calls himself Triple C because he was also Olympic champion. And now he's coming back and he's fighting for the bantamweight title once again, the title that he relinquished when he retired. He's coming back out of retirement and he's fighting Aljamain Sterling. Now, this fight comes down to unknowns and intangibles. I don't think this fight comes down to styles. I mean, obviously every fight comes down to styles, but we don't know how the styles are going to match up, and I'm going to tell you why. So this fight comes down to intangibles. I spoke about Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman a few weeks ago, maybe about a month or 2 ago. And I said that fight was all down to intangibles. And I believe that I was vindicated in that. I do think that fight was all down to intangibles. You saw Kamaru definitely lost a step there. And it was down to intangibles. And I think this fight is down to intangibles. And what I mean by that is intangibles and unknowns. Because I actually went back and saw, and this is what I alluded to at the start of the video, I went back and watched about 7 of Henry Cejudo's fights. It's a lot of fights. It took me a lot of time. The reason I did that is because I wanted to see if Henry Cejudo, 1, had ever been taken down, 2, had ever been swept, reversed, got caught in a ground entanglement when he was on bottom, and just to judge his defensive jiu-jitsu in general. Because as we know, as I said, Aljo's a jiu-jitsu guy. Very, very good top control, very good submissions, very good back takes, dominant from top. I could not find one fight where Henry Cejudo got taken down, first of all, right? He's never been taken down. He's never been taken down. That is an insane stat. Actually, if you go back and you look at the UFC stats, right? Because that's what I always do, when I'm taping these fights. UFC.com, UFC/stats, whatever it is. You will see that Demetrius Johnson is listed as getting one takedown against Henry Cejudo in their second fight. That's wrong. He didn't get a takedown against Henry Cejudo. It was completely wrong. I think that they gave Demetrius Johnson a takedown because he kind of got him down to one knee for like half a second, but not really. I mean, Henry Cejudo reversed it and actually got a takedown of his own and actually won the round out of it, So that was just a mistake. That was an error by UFC stats. He's never been taken down. So I couldn't find any footage of him being taken down, which was kind of annoying. I saw some footage of him defending takedowns, and let me tell you, as the Olympic champion at wrestling, of course, he has got elite takedown defense. So then I continued to look through these fights, and I tried to find fights where, all right, maybe he didn't get taken down, but maybe he was caught in a ground entanglement, reverse swept. I couldn't find any. I couldn't find one piece of footage that had Henry Cejudo on his back. And that makes it really hard to just bet this fight in general, just because of that. Because how is he going to react when Aljo gets him down? If Aljo gets him down. Can Aljo get him down? All signs will point to probably not. But at the same time, Aljo's big. Henry's never had someone aggressively pursue takedowns on him. I do think Aljo will do it in this fight. And if he does get him down, we don't know how Henry's going to react. He might just get completely dominated. I've never seen him on the ground. Even in that Formiga fight. Formiga usually pushes wrestling, back takes and stuff. He didn't get him down. So, yeah, for that reason, it's very hard for me to just even make a prediction on the fight, right? It's just tough. It's just tough just from that only. And then on top of that, he's coming back after 3 years away. Is he going to look the same? Is he going to look weathered? He's 36 years old. Is he too old for flyweight? Even if he bantamweight, even if he had been fighting, forget the 3-year layoff. He's 36 years of age. Even if he had been fighting every single year for the last 3 years, is he going to be able to compete at 36 years of age? It's tough in a lighter weight class. This fight is so hard to predict because it's just predicated on so many unknowns. And everyone's, you can look like a genius if you get it right. Like most fights, if you predict it right. But at the end of the day, fights are very hard to predict, first of all. And there's, I would say, more than 50% of fights come down to minute details that are almost maybe impossible to guess pre-fight, and or the fight could have played out completely differently if one or two things changed. So, I say that to say this. Fighting is very, very hard to break down. And so what I always say, this is something I coined, a saying. In a game where we have to make guesses, I like to make as little guesses as possible, right, with my bets, for the most part. But then you have to factor in the line. If I'm getting a plus 400, I don't mind making multiple guesses, right, because it's a massive line. But what that basically means is that we have to make guesses in this game, right? We're gambling. And we're gambling on MMA, one of the most volatile sports in the entire world. Actually, scratch that. The most volatile sport in the entire world. So we're already guessing. We're guessing if Henry Cejudo is going to look good. We're guessing if Henry Cejudo is going to be able to defend the jiu-jitsu if he does get taken down. We're guessing these things because we've never seen them, face off in the octagon together. And also, we just don't know how they're going to fight. We don't know how the styles are going to clash. So we have to guess anyway, right? That's what we're doing. We're gamblers. We're guessing. We're guessing the future, predicting the future. So in a game where we already have to guess and make loads of assumptions, I just like to do the least amount of guessing as possible. So you think of last week, I bet on Fernando Padilla as a plus 140 underdog against Julian Erosa. And one of the reasons I did that, there was multiple reasons, but one of the reasons I want to touch on now is that because I knew Erosa had a bad chin. He'd been knocked out in the first round about 4 or 5 times. Yeah, that's a lot as a UFC fighter. And so I knew he had a bad chin. I didn't make a guess that he had a bad chin, right? I didn't have to guess that. I knew that. I knew unequivocally for a fact that Julian Erosa had a bad chin. And that was one of the reasons I bet on Fernando Padilla. What happened? Fernando Padilla knocked him out in the first round, dropped him 4 times and knocked him out. Yeah, say what you want about the stoppage. I don't care about that. I'm not talking about that. Erosa has a bad chin. He got dropped 3 or 4 times in that fight, right? There was a reason for that because he had a bad chin. So I didn't guess that Erosa had a bad chin. Yeah, I guessed that Padilla was going to be able to land something, but I didn't have to guess that he had a bad chin. Now, I like those fights. I like those fights where you don't have to guess. I don't have to guess if Khabib Nurmagomedov is going to shoot takedowns. You know, I don't have to guess if certain fighters going to gas out after 1 round. You know, I don't have to guess if De Lima's got bad gas. You know, he does have bad gas. I don't have to guess that. In this fight, I have to do a lot of guessing if I want to make a prediction, and I don't like those type of fights. Look, how I see this fight breaking down is Aljo's going to have a great first round. He always does. I don't know if Aljo's ever lost to round 1. Honestly, I don't think he has. I mean, obviously he got knocked out in round 1 by Marlon Moraes, right? I mean, but he didn't lose the round, he just got knocked out. I'm talking about actually lost to round 1. I can't remember Aljo losing a round 1. I mean, the guy is so dominating round 1. That Cody Stamen round 1 was quite close, but, you know, I might be wrong, but, like, the guy has an amazing round 1 every fight, right? I mean, even that fight he lost against Brian Caraway, I went back and watched that fight because, again, I tried to find a lot of unknowns are in this fight, even on the Aljo side as well, how he's going to defend certain things and him getting taken down himself and stuff. So I watched that Brian Caraway fight, long time ago, and he dominated round 1, and then he lost round 2 and round 3. So Aljo has always going to have a good round 1, and I think he has a good round 1 in this fight. Now, I also think that Henry Cejudo is going to catch Aljo on the feet a few times. I think Henry Cejudo is a better striker, and I think he will start to find his timing as the rounds go on. I mean, if we get into rounds 3 and round 4, I really think Henry Cejudo is going to be, you know, the one really dictating the control of the fight. I really do. I think Aljo can control some of the fight early, especially round 1, and he could even finish him in round 1. But I really see, like, this fight playing out, and if Henry Cejudo's still there, and he hasn't just been completely dominating in round 1 and now he can't even walk, you know, he can't even, like, concentrate type thing because he's got a big black eye or something, like, if he hasn't absorbed major damage by round 3 and round 4, I do think he's going to start to catch Aljo. I think he's going to start to get his timing. I think he's going to start to get his own takedowns. And I think he's going to start to take over and dominate. I really do. I don't think Aljo has good gas tank. Maybe that's the way he fights. Maybe that's just his genetics. But at the end of the day, Aljo doesn't have a great gas tank. We've seen it multiple times now. I mean, in the Pete Yan fight, both fights he gassed quite badly. And yeah, Pedro Munoz fight, you know, he looked good, but I mean, it was a purely striking fight and Pedro didn't really offer anything back. So I think in any fights where resistance has been shown to him, he's gassed. Even in the Brian Caraway fight, you know, he got gassed in that fight. You know, he wasn't completely done, but like he definitely tired out. And so I do think that that's going to happen here. You know, I don't really see Aljo just putting it on him for 5 rounds. But he could get a back take, you know, like in the Peter Yan fight, he was still able to get a back take later on in the fight. I think it was round 4 where he got a back take, or round 3 maybe. So, you know, still later in the fight, you know, championship rounds, he was able to get a back take there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that Aljo wins a decision, you know, or is able to win round 4 or round 5 by getting a back take or dominant top control. But I just see Henry Cejudo kind of putting it on him as the fight goes on now. I don't know how Henry's going to look coming up back after a 3-year layoff. I don't know how Henry's going to look at 36 years of age at bantamweight. I don't know how he's going to look, right? But I'm actually going to side with Henry on this fight. I'm going to say that Henry is an elite fighter. I'm going to say that Henry has some John Jones vibes in this fight, and he's just one of a kind, and he's just a winner, and he finds a way to win. And I do think he's going to actually have to come through some adversity again, like he did it against Marlon Moraes, like he did against Demetrius Johnson. But I'm going to side with Henry here. You know, it's not my most confident pick because I believe that there's just too many unknowns and question marks to make a confident pick. You know, if anyone is coming out this week and just saying like, oh, this guy's going to dominate, he should be minus 300, you know, like I'm super confident in this fighter, they're guessing. Like, they're guessing more than they should be, right? Every single prediction is a guess, but they're guessing more than is available, right? Because certain fights are easy to break down, certain fights are harder to break down, and there's certain things in fights which are just obvious. That obviously in this fight, there's so many unknowns. I mean, you can't argue with that, right? We just don't know how Henry's going to perform coming back from 3 years away. I'm guessing that he's going to perform well because I hold Henry in very high regard. I mean, I think he's one of the best fighters to grace the sport. I think he's extremely high level. I mean, seeing him change his striking midway through his career to dominate guys on the feet and to beat Demetrius Johnson, you know, is amazing. To see him beat Demetrius Johnson, one of the best fighters ever, you know, to see what he did in all of those fights, TJ Cruz and Marlon Moraes, it was very good to see, right? So I'm going to side with him for that reason. But Aljo's a motherfucker. Aljo probably going to get him down on the feet, going to get him down to the ground at some point. You know, he might not be able to take him down from a traditional double leg or something, but I do think he'll grab a single, transition to a double, push him up against the cage. Once he's got him up against the cage, he's probably going to be big and strong enough, at least early, to take him down. It's just, will he be able to consolidate top position? If he does, then it's going to be a bad, bad night for Henry Cejudo, because if you've got Aljo on top of you, I don't care who you are. I mean, Peter Yan, look how good Peter Yan is, and he got dominated. I thought he was going to get finished at one point in that second fight because Aljo had him back mounted, sprayed him out, and just was smashing him. So it's going to be tough, but I'm going to side with Henry Cejudo here. I'm going to say that he comes back and becomes quadruple C, you know, gets another UFC title, and beats Aljamain Sterling. I don't mind the under either, because I just feel like Aljo has a good chance to finish the fight early. I mean, Aljo can finish anybody. So I think Aljo has a good chance to finish the fight early. And if he doesn't, as I say, I do see Henry Cejudo taking over. And if Henry Cejudo takes over, I think he can get Aljo out of there late. But Aljo's very tough, you know. Peter Yan couldn't get him out of there. But I think Henry Cejudo is more aggressive than Peter Yan. Peter Yan's kind of like, he plays with his food a little bit. I don't think Henry will do that. I think if Henry sees that Aljo's gassing, I think he'll pour it on and finish him. So I do like the under a little bit here. It's actually plus money, which isn't bad. I don't know if I'm going to play it myself because so many unknowns. And they're both extremely high-level guys. I mean, there's not many people who are going to finish Aljamain Sterling. And likewise, there's not many people who are going to finish Henry Cejudo. So, you know, I'm not rushing to play it. But we'll see how my thoughts go over the next few days. I'll speak to the guys in my syndicate, see what they think. And we'll discuss. And I'll come up with my final predictions, as I always do. But yeah, that's it. One thing I will say is that a better way to target this fight may be to bet Henry Cejudo after round one. If you want to play Henry Cejudo, you know, maybe a live entry might be good. But yeah, that's it for now, guys. Not much more to say. I will be back with a main card breakdown if there's enough comments on this video. And until then, I'll see you in the next video.